Hello everyone, I'm Leica Z, and I'll be teaching you how to use your Omni-Directional Maneuvering Gear in Attack on Titan Discovery. First, we'll be going over a brief explanation of how your ODM gear works, mechanically speaking. Skip to this timestamp if you already know how your ODM gear works in lore. After that, you will learn the basic keybinds used to operate your gear. You may skip to this timestamp if you already know your keybinds. Once we have our keybinds down, we'll get started with a lesson on movement I like to call maneuvering strategy. So, what is omnidirectional maneuvering gear? It's referred to by a few different names depending on the canon you're going off of, manga or anime, such as three-dimensional maneuvering gear, which is abbreviated as 3DMG. Omnidirectional maneuvering gear is also shortened to ODMG, or ODM gear. It is also sometimes called omnidirectional mobility gear. ODM gear is a specialized weapon created originally to combat Titans. Titans are much larger than humans by a factor of entire meters, meaning that the nape of a Titan's neck, its weak point, is impossible to reach. ODM gear solves this issue by allowing the user to move in 3 dimensions instead of 2. Humans are typically confined to the ground in terms of their natural ability to move. The best they can do is jump, but not very high. This gear allows you to move upwards and maintain distance above the ground. This is critical for fighting Titans. ODM gear works by 2 methods of locomotion, pulling force and jet propulsion. Both are powered by pressurized gas tanks situated on both sides of the user's hips. The first method utilizes grappling hooks fired out of 2 small guns just above the gas tanks. These grappling hooks are stored in the cylinders of the main apparatus piece, which is connected to the straps on the user's body. The main piece sits just above the user's butt on their lower back. Gas from the tanks is sent through tubes into the cylinders of the main piece, where the wire of the grappling hooks is spooled, meaning it is coiled around like the wire of a weed eater. The turbines inside the cylinder are spun around due to the gas exerting a force on them, which causes the spool to uncoil at high speeds. This sends the head of the grappling hook through a wire-carrying beam and out of the muzzle of the hip guns. In other words, your ODM gear is a pair of air guns. The grappling hooks then embed themselves into whatever surface they land on. Something very important to note is that the hooks do not embed themselves into dirt or into the ground. Do not attempt to hook into the ground in game. The hooks are then retracted via a currently unknown method. This results in the user being pulled to the point in which they embedded themselves. Here is a demonstration of a hook being fired into the surface of the headquarters wall in Shiganshina. The second method is far simpler than the first. The main apparatus of the ODM gear also has an exhaust port for gas that is circulated through the turbines. This exhaust port is adjustable via a slider on the controllers of the gear, allowing it to rotate left and right. The rotating gas exhaust allows soldiers to adjust the vector, meaning direction, of their propulsion. To put it simply, it's a jet that emits pressurized gas. The controllers themselves have several input features used to operate the gear. The triggers are used to fire the hooks and adjust the gas output, allowing the user to conserve their gas in the event of an emergency or lack of supplies. The part of the controller that looks like a bike brake retracts the wire of the grappling hook. Sitting just beneath the blade slot of the controller is a button used to release the disposable blades to insert new ones. Speaking of which, the controller also serves as the hilt for a sword with replaceable blades, which are stored in boxes beneath gas canisters. In real life, the acceleration at which ODM gear propels you would most likely kill the user due to excessive G-forces. The in-lore solution to this are the leather straps which connect all pieces of your ODM gear to your body. The straps serve as structural support for the equipment, while also distributing the force over your entire body, allowing you to go from 0 to 100 without any broken bones. The straps also assist in orbiting techniques, alongside the adjustable gas exhaust mentioned earlier. These 2 features allow the user to orbit around their hook's point of contact, either left or right. And finally, we are done with the actual mechanics of the equipment. I know I said it would be brief, but I lied. I'm a liar. Fuck you. Before we get started, make sure to have gas and blades. The gas is what you use to fuel your ODM gear, and it can and will run out if you use it for extended periods of time without refilling. This is not good. Please avoid this. Hold F on any gas tank or blade box right over there to refuel your supplies. Remember to also pick up a medkit or bandages during a PD. These are very useful in the event of you or somebody else getting injured. You can heal yourself with a large medkit, I think, or a bandage. These things also depend on the severity of the wound. If somebody is severely injured, you're going to want to use the large medkit, and if they're only slightly beat up, you're going to want to use the bandage. So let's begin with our actual keybinds. First thing you should know, pressing and holding Q will allow you to fire your hook at any hookable surface. This does not include the ground, with some exceptions because the game is like that, but outside of the walls you cannot hook on the ground. So, this is for your left hook, just press and hold Q. The same goes for your right hook, press and hold E. When you're hooking, you can orbit, which you can do by pressing and holding A or D. This allows you to essentially orbit around your hook's point of contact. This stops you from reaching or from bumping into any walls, unless there's walls in the orbit path. For example, like this, I'm orbiting off to the right side here is fine, but when I orbit off to the left, I bump into this house right here. This can have some complications. Orbiting also kills your momentum. It absolutely destroys your speed. So if I'm going at a fast speed like this, and I decide to orbit, boom, I slow down. See how much I slow down? It essentially stabilizes your speed to a lower level, which is not what you want a lot of times. Sometimes you do want that. For example, if you want to make a fine adjustment, sometimes orbiting will help, because it will slow you down and it'll allow you to make fine adjustments. That's what orbiting is mainly for. It's also used very heavily when you're killing Titans. You can also fire both of your hooks at the same time by pressing and holding both Q and E. You do not have to fire your hooks at the same spot. For example, if you are quick enough, you can fire them at one point and then shift over to the other point and fire another hook. For example, left, right, boom, there I go. 2 hooks. Something very important to note, if you're hooking using both of your hooks, you cannot orbit. You can't move out of the way or anything. You are bound to go straight towards that point that you were hooking at. You cannot orbit left or right. As you can see, I'm trying to. My gear will not cooperate because that's the way it's designed. I just pressed G to check my fuel tanks. It'll give you a notification in the bottom right corner, giving you an estimate of just how much gas you have. It won't give you an exact number. For example, here it's saying about half full. Remember, you can press G to do this. You have to be stationary while you're doing it. You need to be standing still, which is why you want to be doing it outside of Titan territory, preferably away from danger. This adds a little bit of tactical issues into the game regarding, oh, am I almost out of gas? Oh, can I stop to check my gas? Is it safe? Thankfully, it only takes a second. Anytime that you're hooking onto anything, well, I should say 90% of the time, you want to be holding space. Space is for your gas boost. This will allow you to move at your almost maximum speed if you're not double hooking. So yeah, this is what you want to be doing. Of course, if you're very low on gas, you might not want to be gas boosting everywhere. Especially if you're very close to a gas tank. Sometimes it's just safe to not boost. If you're escaping danger, boost. You can tap H to open up your flare menu, which you're going to want to take a good note of this as well, because your flares will come in very useful. The yellow flare means mission halted or mission terminated. The blue flare usually means retreat. The purple flare, and this is very important, this means emergencies. This is what the flare that you're going to be firing in the event of you being severely injured or you running out of gas and not being able to get to a refill. If you're stuck out of gas in Titan territory and you're Titan bait, you're going to want to fire a yellow flare. Or sorry, not a yellow flare, a purple flare. Fire a purple flare. The red flare usually means low-level threat, such as mindless Titans. The green flare means mission successful. And the black flare could mean abnormals or assassins, usually a very heavy threat. Here's an example of a purple flare being fired. There it goes. Your teammates can see that pretty easily, and also it makes a loud ass sound, so you know. You can press R to unsheathe your blades, basically just pulling them out. You can press R again to put them back in. Obviously you want to go into combat with your blades drawn, but something that not every player knows is that if you want to get a new set of blades, a completely fresh pair, because let's say you're fighting Titans and you're worried that your blades are going to break while you're fighting a Titan, and you want to reset the durability on your blades, which means you can afford to waste that last little bit of durability just to get a new pair. This might save your ass. You can do this by double tapping T, and then you can press R again to draw a new pair. Here I have a very brave volunteer, and I'm going to show you how to swing your blades. You just pull them out, and then you left click. This will of course do damage to your teammates, so you better watch where the fuck you're swinging them, because I do not want to get team killed by the illicits. Besides, they might also swing back, and that's a little bit worrying. I probably should have mentioned this earlier, but when you're fighting a Titan, you don't want to immediately orbit around them. Instead of trying to fight them and immediately go for the back of their head, blind them first by grappling onto their face and simply swinging at their face. You'll know they're blinded when they put their hands up to their eyes, at which point you can press and hold A or D, or rather you can detach and maneuver yourself to the back of the Titan's nape, where you can grapple onto that and then swing for full effect. That just about does it for keybinds, so we're going to move on to advanced maneuvering, or rather maneuvering strategy. So this is the part of the video for the more experienced players. Some people who are struggling with Discovery's gear, because it's actually very fucking slow. Not that fast. One hooking everywhere that's pretty slow. Orbiting is a little bit difficult to do because it just kills your momentum. So, I'm going to describe a way you can get around the district much faster. Okay? It's called splitting. And this basically involves you taking two objects and finding a gap between those two objects and just firing hooks at them. You're basically splitting both of your hooks apart, like as if you were splitting your legs, and you are traveling to the point in between those two objects, which sounds confusing on paper, but it's not that complicated. You can do it with any two objects that have a gap in between them. For example, this house and this house. There's a gap in between them. Let's say these houses in the middle weren't there, and there's nothing to grapple on over there. Pretend these aren't here. How am I supposed to travel through this alleyway quickly? Well, the way you do it is like this. See? This is also much faster than just using one hook everywhere. Of course, if you're going around those sharp corners, you can't really split your way through that, because you don't have an angle on the gap that you need to split. This is the gap that I'm trying to travel through. From this angle, I can't see it. I can only see the corner. So I'd want a gap like this and then orbit like this. And that's how you get around the corner. I think this is a lot better example right here. See, this is the problem. When you're one hooking everywhere, you might have to orbit to fix yourself. If you're trying to, let's say I hook on this building to get across, I could bump into this building. And if I try to move out of the way of that building, guess what I have to do? I have to orbit. And when I orbit, I kill my momentum. This isn't good, which is why splitting is a lot better. Splitting can also be a little bit inaccurate at times, so it's not for everybody. But it is a fast way to go in a straight line. That's what it's really useful for. A fast way of going through a straight line. If you get really creative with it, you can do a lot of good stuff. For example, let's get above the district. Remember, any two objects with a gap in between them, which means these two towers that I had to one hook there. These two towers. this tower and this house. These two houses. If you're very quick with it, you can quickly dodge or stop yourself from failing and hitting the ground. Like so. And honestly, as long as you use a good mix of splitting and one-hooking, you should be great on maneuvering. This is how you get things down. Now, I should warn you, splitting is not good during Titan combat. That's really not where it thrives. Titan combat is where you want to be firing one hook most of the time, especially when you're hooked on it with Titan's face, because if you're going too fast and you hit a Titan in the face, or you bump it to a Titan's face, you may just recoil off of it. This is really bad. Could end up in you getting killed. You want to blind the Titan with as much assurance as possible. If you're using the gas refill or the blade refill within the gate, I know this ladder can be a bitch to get up. You can't go at it while you're running. This is not going to work. See, I just can't climb the ladder. You have to go at it while you're walking. So this is the harder part, getting up the actual latch. It can work like that sometimes, but sometimes this little handle here can fuck you over. So if you're in a PD and you're stressed and you're trying to futz your way up there, it can be a problem. So instead, you just want to hook onto the thing and then orbit around it, like so. Hook onto it and then orbit around it. If you're really close, it might just end up latching you onto the wall, which is something, by the way, I forgot to mention earlier. You can hook onto a wall and then stay on the surface of that wall to just stick to it, like so. It's not very useful. You can take good screenshots with it. Looks cool. You look like an anime protagonist, which, you know, you are. Don't know what to tell you. It also reminds me of another good strategy you can use to get up the wall. See these pillars? Perfect for splitting. Watch this. Look, I just went up the wall very quickly, very easily, very fast by just splitting those two wall segments right there. And it looks like a very small gap, but your character's hitbox is actually very small. Usually, I think your arms do not register. They don't have collision. So that means the width of your character is essentially only the width of your torso and your legs. Your legs and your torso are the only things that have collision. My arm can clip straight through the wall, as you can see, which means you can fit through some surprisingly tight gaps using splitting, like a raccoon. And at the end of the day, if you're out of gas, use the horse lift. This thing fucking sucks. That about wraps it up for the video, guys. Thank you for watching, and I hope this video helped you a lot in your endeavors using 3DMG. Hope to see you during my next PD.